Let's talk about high refresh rate displays in smartphones. Just the other day, the Pixel 6a caused a few issues online and caused a lot of hatred towards Google because it only came with a 60Hz display instead of a 120Hz one like many were expecting. I tweeted about this and in the process caused a few people to be a bit disgruntled with my opinions. So what I thought I'd do is make a video explaining why I think high refresh rate displays on smartphones are, by and large, kind of unnecessary, especially when you talk about sort of budget or mid-range smartphones compared to the super high-end ones like the Pros and the Ultras of the world. Before we go deeper, I had this comment saying that maybe I couldn't tell the difference between the higher refresh rate and lower refresh rate displays, and that's fine because everyone perceives these things differently. And to that I have to say, I absolutely can tell the difference. So behind me I have a 240Hz BenQ XL2546K. It is one of the leading esports monitors. It's super fast, 240Hz with DIAC as well. I'll put an image up from a guy called Ali Saeed. He runs Optimum Tech. He did a video on this. Just really smooth monitor. And anything worse than that, say a bog standard IPS 240Hz or 144Hz even, they feel slow, they feel a bit laggy, and going back down to 60Hz feels like a chore, especially in games like Valorant and CSGO. I can also tell the difference when I'm using a smartphone, but really this is where things get a bit challenging. See, the reason why I find it kind of unnecessary to have a high refresh rate sort of display on a smartphone, there are a few. The first one is it drives cost up. Now, whether you like that or not, it's a thing. The individual cost goes up for creating the thing, and therefore the cost gets passed on to consumer because there's no way that a big company like Google is soaking that up. Secondly, 120Hz can be harder to hit for different animations and certain things and like that. So when you've got a super high-end smartphone with like an 8 Gen 1 or whatever, then it's easy to hit 120 frames to match that 120Hz, everything feels buttery smooth. But when you're using a lower end chipset or a mid-range chipset, sometimes it's not as easy to hit 120 frames, and then you end up with a bit of jitter and it can be a bit jarring. And sure, you could fight this by putting better graphics and a better sort of processor in the phone, but then you drive up the cost and suddenly it's not a mid-range phone anymore, it's not a budget smartphone anymore. Another thing is that most of us use our smartphone for Reddit, Twitter, basically, social media, taking some photos here and there, maybe watching the odd video, which on YouTube is locked to 60Hz anyway. You end up with not really needing more than 60Hz. And if you do set a smartphone to 120, sure, you get faster animations in the OS, but then your battery life is greatly diminished. It's kind of nuts. And then I want to point you over to this video that I made on Android Authority back when I worked for them. And it showed that the general public, not the people watching this video, if you're watching this video, you're very likely not in this category. The general public just can't really tell a difference, or if they can, it doesn't feel nearly as important to go from, say, 60 to 90Hz at the time, which was a perceivable difference to you and I, people who tend to use smartphones that are a little bit more, say, in tune with technology. The fact that these guys couldn't tell the difference was kind of showing. And look no further than the recent iPhones. So up until the iPhone 13 Pro, all the iPhones had 60Hz displays. And that includes ones that, the iPhone 13 standard, for example, or the iPhone 12 standard. These smartphones came out relatively recently and people were still happy with 60Hz. I don't think many people are buying the iPhone Pros for 120Hz. Now, this may differ from your opinion because you're used to watching YouTube videos where every YouTube tech reviewer is going, yes, 120Hz finally. That doesn't represent the great the amount of people who buy iPhones. Go and have a look at those iPhone 13 mini, iPhone 13 standard, 60Hz display sales, and you can quickly see that they still outsell a lot of their competition that have 120Hz screens. It is not always about the screen refresh rate. Another comment that I got insinuated that I don't like the progression in technology because, just because it's unnecessary doesn't mean we shouldn't have it. And to a certain extent, I agree. Sometimes we do have to push the boundaries a bit. I mean, there are definitely negatives to this. Worse off in battery life's a big one, and worse off in price as well. And also, it means that they can't tailor that budget to other things. So say the phone costs exactly the same. It might have a better build, or it might have a better performance, or a slightly nicer sort of tone to the display, and a better OLED panel. Stuff that actually makes a difference, not just the refresh rate of the screen. And someone actually put this comment, and I'm sure they were using a sarcastic tone, but I totally agree. Those things are unnecessary. 65 watt charging. Go and have a look at Samsung's Galaxy smartphones. They actually went up to 45 watts and maybe even past that if I remember correctly. And they just dropped down to a slower charging speed because, one, fast charging does damage batteries much more than slightly slower charging. Two, it was unnecessary. No one needed to charge their phone that fast, that sort of regularly, that it would be fine to negatively impact the battery life. And the comment regarding the cameras, 108 megapixel cameras by and large aren't as good as slightly lower resolution but same size sensor cameras because of the size of the photo size. Again, just someone looking at pure specs and going, let's buy a smartphone based on these specs. I have made videos before about not buying smartphones based on the specs. It is ridiculous that there are still people out there that still, I don't know, that even follow me or are some way tied to me, because otherwise they wouldn't have seen the tweet, to be able to put stuff like that. I mean, someone said, these tech reviewers, what are they doing? I can't believe there's someone out there with this kind of attitude towards technology. I just think that if you're really pushing the boundaries at everything you do, you're going to come up short somewhere. Sometimes you want a good smartphone. It's basically what Apple does sometimes. I'm not an Apple fanboy. I love my Samsungs, absolutely. And Huawei, please, if they could just get the Play Store back, that would be great. But the thing is, you don't have to have mega specs everywhere to create a good smartphone experience. And this is something I've said before. I feel like a broken record saying it, to be honest. So that's my video. I kind of wanted to talk about it because, one, it was a bit of a rant, get it off my chest. And number two, I haven't done one of these sort of free flowy videos in a little while. They've been more scripted and stuff like that. And three, I had to address those people on Twitter. So thank you all so much for watching. Please do like, comment, and subscribe if you're new around here to the most video like this one, all that stuff, socials, video description, all that. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I'll catch you later. Peace.